This is the B-Team Podcast, brought to you by Jackrabbit Illustrated. The B-Team is presented by Drake's Place in Battle, South Dakota, and sponsored by Jackrabbit Central and Shenanigans in Sioux Falls. Now, here are your B-Team hosts, Brendan and Ben.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on a special Tuesday edition of the B-Team Podcast, way earlier than we would normally do things. But we wanted to make sure we had on our very special guest who will be coming on later in the show, probably around 6-ish tonight, Brian McLaughlin. Not our ideal weekend this last weekend. Guys, but what do you do?
Yeah, before we get there, I want to thank our sponsors, Cottonwood Coffee in Brookings. Go there for all your coffee needs and even food needs. They have really good food. And also food needs, go to Drake's Place in Battle, South Dakota. They have amazing food there. Thank you to both of those businesses for being our title sponsors. Now to the bad news. Yeah. Sadness on Saturday. Surreal, to be honest. Looking back on it, there's no way that happened, right?
I'm still in disbelief.
It is. I think the toughest thing is you can go back into that game and you can pick probably, I don't know what, at least 10 to 15 plays that if they'd have gone a little bit differently, not just the last play, not just the punt call or the non-punt call, all throughout the game, just scattered everywhere. The play right before the non-call, if you get an extra 6 inches on that third down run, game's over. It's all over the place. They're just littered everywhere. It's like the Southern Illinois game. I think that's the frustrating part about it is this team should not have lost either of those games. I don't think, and that's not to take anything away from South Dakota. I think that team, we didn't deserve to win that game throughout the game. I think we didn't really get engaged in the game until the last quarter. The offensive line really took hold. We found a play that worked. It was like a counter play, and we ran it over and over and over and over and just ate with it. But should have been doing that all game. Should have been playing that hard all game. Why did it take that long?
Yeah, I don't know. I do feel like they waited too long to rely on the run. It felt like we were relying on the pass way too much early in the game. But yeah, down at the end, they talked about how they practiced that play. Like that's a play it's a run out the clock play. It's like, okay, if there's 8 to 9 seconds left, they're confident that play is going to be able to run out the clock. Well, as I forget who was pointed out, that play is practiced in the Dana, not in the Dakota dump. And the sidelines are much closer, about 1 second to 2 seconds closer, apparently. So it just the play didn't last long enough. But I mean, you can second guess it. There are a lot of things that we could have done. Yeah, as Brad said, that, once they put 1 second back on, you knew something was going to happen. I thought that what would have happened was like a defensive penalty, and then they get into position for a field goal, and then we go to overtime and deal with that. But, a miracle happened for them, and I don't know. They can hang their hat if they want to, but we should have won the game. But like you said, I think they deserve to win the game. I think they, for the most part, outplayed us. They showed up to play that game, and we just, I don't know. It's weird. You'd think coming off that NDSU win, you'd be all ready to go. And, was there a hangover from that game? Maybe, physically, there's a possibility there. But you'd hope that we would have been able to get up for the USD game. And we talked about how it shouldn't be a letdown game, and it kind of turned out to be that way, to be honest.
Right. And, I think there's something to when you have two rivalries like this, um, I think for the longest time, and we said this, I think, when Matt Zimmer was on, uh, SDSU as a program, when we say we treat the marker game like it's just any other game, we know that we don't come out and play with the intensity that it's just some other game. Like that's a fact. That everybody knows that's not just another game. But with the USD games, especially the games down there, since USD's gone Division 1, it has really felt like we have taken those games like they're just another game, and USD certainly does not. They want to beat us. They want to beat us more than any game on their schedule.
Oh yeah.
And historically speaking, outside of 2 years, they've never had playoff games to look forward to or anything like that. And we have never matched their intensity, and we're going to have to start doing that. They're good enough to the point where you're going to have to match that intensity of a rivalry and not just take it for granted. So, and while we're talking about negative things, the thing that really kills us from this game are the 2 targeting penalties. The first one, I think, that was by definition, was definitely targeting. I cannot believe the one against Bacchus got called. That was such. What is he supposed to do? People say, well, when he sees him falling down, he's supposed to let up. He'd already started to attempt to make the tackle. That's why the guy locked up and started falling backwards. What are you supposed to do? And then now that is huge. That's 2 starters for us on defense that are going to be missing half of our must-win game against UND. So that's brutal. It was just really, there was a lot that was, when you're in the stadium, it was tough to watch. I think for most of the game until there was highs and lows that started well. Then kind of the middle of the game was a bummer, and then after that it really it got really good until that last play. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the targeting calls are tough. By the letter of the law, it probably was correct call. I think on the 18 pod, Tanner mentioned Tanner from Kellerland, which if you haven't listened to theirs, go back and check out. He has some good insights, and he was a really good guest on their pod. But he mentioned that rule needs some modification, and I agree with it completely. I think that there has to be, you have to decide the intent. Like neither of those plays was their intent for there to be helmet to helmet contact, but it happened based on what the offensive player did. In which, in my opinion, I think that's probably 75% or more of penalty or of targeting calls are based on what the offensive player ends up doing and gets his head in the wrong spot. And I think officials need to have the liberty to say, well, it was targeting head to head, got to give him 15 yards, but it wasn't intentional. We're not going to kick the guy out. So, I mean, that has to happen. And I hope going into next year it will, but don't want to blame the refs too much. I mean, we definitely put ourselves in position to lose that game, even with those 2 targeting calls and those ejections. We still obviously should have won that game. But yeah, back to the intensity. I think that we just haven't taken them seriously since they've been in D1, and I think it's especially because they were bad when they started D1. And we would just kill them. And they, it was like, okay, this is a joke. It's not a rivalry. And they've been building a program, and credit to them. I mean, they've done a good job. They're starting to get some good players and some good talent year after year. And like you said, it's time to take them seriously. It's not going to be, I still don't think it's going to be the level of NDSU game, but it's going to be, it's going to have to be a very, intense game where you really take them seriously, and you have to be ready for their best shot, because it matters a lot to them. I mean, to them, we're the biggest game on their schedule for sure.
Right. And that's tough when you already have a game on your schedule. That's the biggest game on your schedule.
Right.
So you got to treat them, I don't want to say equally but you got to get your intensity way jacked up for that game. And, I think a game like this almost has to be a catalyst for that, right? I mean, you can't just take that one and go, oh, well, it's just another game. I mean, and there's things that happened in that game that after they won and stuff, you can't, I think will last, for the players going into next year and things like that, where they're not going to forget those sort of things. But, while we're complaining about the Missouri Valley and things like that and their officiating and calls, here is my biggest complaint. And I'm not complaining that the Dome teams do this. That's fine. My complaint is if you are going to allow a Dome team to have its PA on and its music on so loud that it is distorting the speakers, I get to bring my goddamn cowbell to the game. All right? I don't artificial noisemaker me and then allow a Dome to have giant artificial noisemakers and then tell me I can't bring a stupid cowbell to the game. At least your fans are creating noise with it and not some dude with a knob, okay? Like, I have no problem. Fine. If they want to crank that up, that's fine. It's cool. I don't care. That's great. That's your Dome field advantage. But I get to bring a cowbell then. And I don't want to hear you complain about it neither, or I'm going to ring you in the head with it, okay?
Yeah, that
is a pet peeve of mine that they get to just shoot that stuff up. Literally, I mean, that is the definition of artificial noise. And then we can't bring a cowbell? Like, come on, man. Not vuvuzelas or anything.
And it was crazy too. Like they if it was third down, the band would start playing, the PA guy would start yelling, and the board guy that controlled the sounds would basically like hit every button he had. It was like and then like the music would play and like the coyote would yell, and it was like it seriously sounded terrible, but it worked. I mean, it worked because it was just crazy noise that you're like, what is going on? Like, it's just, and it was so loud too, but it sounded awful. You couldn't even tell.
And it would stop, and their fans were just silent. Like, there's no noise. Honestly, until that game was over, their fans were like pathetically quiet.
Our fans were louder, I think. Honestly, I mean, there was times I couldn't hear myself yell, and that's awesome. But in the fourth quarter, man, our fans were bringing it, and they got a little bit tired. We had to really try and get them up, and I don't know how Brendan says vuvuzela, but that's an interesting take, brother.
It is not
vuvuzela.
There's no way it's vuvuzela.
It's definitely vuvuzela.
Yes, it is definitely vuvuzela.
I'll have to check into that.
You watch any news clip from that World Cup when they were there. It is not whatever vulva. It's not vulva like you said. It's vuvuzela. I just did. See, not a swear word. See, I haven't even used my F-bomb pass, and we just lost the USD, so I feel pretty good. But I could give you a Kleenex Bison World Order. I'm not even sure what that means, Mark. But anyways, the interesting thing, this game, let's talk about what this game does for SDSU and kind of the position that we're in now. I know I saw on here, gosh darn it, who said it? SDSU is a team a seed does not want to match up with. And that's 100% true. You look back, James E. Lark Jr. I James, whenever I see your name, I think James E. Clark, and that's all that gets stuck in my head, but I know it's Lark. Well, I know I'm wrong. I don't know it's Lark, but he says they're we are certainly a team that you don't want to face when it comes into the playoffs. A team making it and winning the national championship with all road games has never happened since 2004. And back then it was not a 24-team playoff. I think it was still only a 16-team playoff, or at max it was a 20-team. No, it was 16. It was only 16. And so that's a tough hill to climb. I mean, there's, I believe, 6 games if you play on Thanksgiving. So depending on the matchup, I mean, we get matched up with Montana because I expect them to lose to Montana State. then we probably get paired up with Montana. The reality is SDSU, we've been in the playoffs 9 years. We haven't won a natty yet, which means you've lost 9 games in the playoffs. We don't have enough variety in those teams that we could start Thanksgiving weekend and play all the way through the natty and beat a team that beat us in the playoffs every one of those games, because we only have 5. We've only lost to 5 total teams out of 9 years in the playoffs, which is just an odd stat. A lot of that comes from geography, right? But I really have faith for this team to get cooking. I really do. I mean, the 2 losses are kind of fluky to a point. One of them, the Southern Illinois game, we were missing a lot of players. Rivalry game, you don't bring it like you should, and you get outplayed, and then get beat on a Sports Center number 1 play of the weekend, which was gross. I was getting people wishing me happy birthday and congratulating me on the win, and I had to be like, thanks, but we didn't. So appreciate it. So that was brutal.
Yeah. Jordan Fink asked if the Jacks can recover mentally from this. Also, does this loss now jeopardize Isaiah Davis coming back? Would you still come back or try for medical redshirt? I highly doubt that this loss does anything in terms of Isaiah Davis coming back. I hope we see him this week. And if you listen to the A-Team podcast, Tanner says that he thinks that he'll be back. I thought he was going to be back against USD. I was disappointed to not see him, because I feel like he makes a huge difference in that game, and we probably win by a couple scores, or for sure at least salt the game away at the end. But I don't see, if he's available this week, he's going to play, and that's all there is to it. And then once we're in the playoffs, you're not going to hold somebody back just for a red shirt. And honestly, like he's the kind of talent. I mean, Pierre Strong could play another year, but he's not going to, because he's going to the NFL. And Isaiah Davis is the same kind of talent, where at some point he's going to decide, I think he's going to be good enough to go to the NFL, and he's going to decide, you know what, I'm done with college, I'm going to the NFL. So you don't save guys like that, when they're already developed. So yeah, I don't think that's an issue. But speaking of Isaiah Davis, I do think that he can provide a spark to this team that they seem to need on offense. And like we've said, it's not that Strong is bad. He's the best back in the FCS, but it's the variety and the being able to keep Strong fresh and having a punishing back that we've just been missing, to be honest. Strong can hit home runs all day, but he's not. And he's getting better. I think he's doing a better job at running the ball in a power sense. But at the same time, he's not Isaiah Davis in that manner. And if we can get him back, I think it'll turn us into a run first team that'll make things a lot easier on Oladokin.
Right. I will say this: in the last game, in that last half, Pierre did probably what I thought was his best job of the year on getting forward momentum and getting yards every time we ran the ball, especially in the fourth quarter, to try to run down the clock. I think that was his best job of that every year. But Jim Poppin, he says fresh legs is a good thing this time of year. I mean, that's a huge burst to get a guy who's just been aching to come back, not banged up at all, outside of obviously recovering from his injury, and having him come out and hammer defenses. And Kurt says it's style. He's hard on tacklers. He really is. He's kind of that. He kind of makes people Teddy Bridgewater towards the end of the game after he beats them up. And if anybody doesn't get that reference, watch the fumble return against the Broncos this weekend and see Teddy Bridgewater make a business decision. We'll put it that way on a 190-pound running back, or defensive back, which is kind of sad. But anyways, yeah, no, it'll be huge. It'd be huge to get him back. Has he used the red shirt? I don't remember. Was he a true freshman?
He was a true freshman. Yep.
Right. So even if, let's say, he got hurt Dixie State, correct? So that's 2 games, right?
Yep.
Colorado State, Dixie State. So he's only played in 2 games.
Right.
So if Isaiah Davis plays this week and then the next week he's still only played in 4 games. You're allowed to appear in 4 games to take a red shirt.
Right.
So you definitely use him, because if you go past that 4 games, that's the type of run you want to be a part of. You don't leave him back hoping that he doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. No, I don't think it's a question. I think I really do hope he's going to be back this game, because, like I said, I think he's going to make a big difference. And like you said, either if we don't get a seed and we win the next 2 games, then we're in the quarterfinals. If we do get a seed and we win 2 games, we're in the semifinals. And so, I mean, you're not going to hold him back at that point.
No. And when it comes to seed, I tend to think that it might be a little bit hopeful, but hopefully
no seed talk. We're waiting for our main man
when BMAC gets on here.
Yeah,
we'll let him expand on that more. But this is gonna be a wild week across the FCS. I mean, it usually is.
You should see. You wait until the games that I've got teed up for us. It's the playoff implications are insane. Which, if you want playoff content, go watch the FCS Fans Nation pod. It's a 2-hour long episode, but it's all really, really good. It breaks down how the playoff committee decides things. They make some assumptions, and then they go and pick out who the playoff teams are going to be, who the seeds are going to be, what the bracket could look like. Go watch that. It's really, really good content. But what I was going to say is that with all these games with huge playoff implications, I don't know how they did that, because they were such big assumptions. I mean, you had to make assumptions to do what they did.
You have to. Yeah,
but
you have to.
But they were they're huge games where if they go one way, then it's, the bracket looks one way. But if they go another way, the bracket could look completely different. And so it's just weird to have that many games with that huge of playoff and seeding implications in the last week of the year.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel bad for those guys having to put that together this year, especially. Obviously we are part of the FCS Fans Nation network, but I feel that's so tough, because we've seen the chaos all year. We've been involved in it 3 times. This is the deepest FCS has been in years, and it's so fun. But there's going to be so many wild finishes, and we have a new and we have a new committee. Like, every committee member is new. We have no idea what these guys are going to do. So, man, it's going to be wild. I can't wait to watch. I'm going to be going to the game, and I think I'm going to plop in front of the TV when I get home and just watch every FCS game that I can, because it feels like every FCS game this weekend matters to some degree. So it's going to be nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Chad, do we have Brian on? Brian, you here?
Here he is.
Hey, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
We got you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, man. Guys, I tried the video thing. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. I cannot figure out how to get this damn video camera to work right. It just won't.
No worries.
But I'm ugly anyways. Y'all don't want that.
But you can see us, right? You can see us.
Yeah, well, you guys are handsome and young. I mean, you got it going for you. I don't. I used to, maybe. Depends on who you ask, I guess.
Well, Chad uses Just for Men, so don't feel bad.
Well,
hey, now, what am I adding pepper and salt into my pepper?
Jeez, they have touch of gray.
At least you have salt.
Touch of gray, yeah.
Well, I guess salt's gray, isn't it? Yeah.
Not as much salt as Helton puts on his brisket.
Uh-oh. There you go.
Anyway, thank you, Brian, for joining us. Brian McLaughlin, a very wise FCS guy. And we were just starting to talk about playoff implications and how crazy this weekend is going to be in terms of all the games that have just huge implications towards, playoffs and seeding and all that.
Right. Oh, which games? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Just in general, I mean, between the Montana State game, the East Tennessee State game, and then what's the other one? The Sac State UC Davis game. I mean, those 3 games all three, in my opinion, could have seeding implications.
Oh yeah. And you never know about an upset either. Yeah, and it's always possible. But those are big. We have 2 games that are just outright conference championships, with the SoCon and the Big South. And because those conferences are who they are, it's potentially do or die, for the schools that win or lose, depending on who wins and who loses. So, we were just talking about this on Keith Brake's show in Fargo like an hour or two ago, and it's like, man, you just can't help but think that the SRS thing, which is supposed to be like the 4th or 5th tiebreaker, is going to come into play like 5 times in the seeding situation this year, and probably in the bubble too. And Keith, I got to share this. I mean, Keith goes, man, don't you wish they would release that thing ahead of time? And I'm like, yeah, it's like this Soviet Union, secret thing. And we have to read minds to try to figure it out. And you go to the Massey ratings and, which are things that are respected, during the spring, during March Madness. But you never know for sure exactly what they're going to come up with. So it's, it's crazy. But yeah, we got some monsters this weekend.
Yeah. So Brian, we in case people don't know, you put out a projecting the playoffs and seeds and things like that article here on FCS Fans Nation this week. And for how that shakes out, because obviously us SDSU fans are a little bit negative after last weekend. What do you see for the Jacks seeding possibilities if they are there? Who it looks like, who you think they'll end up matched up with? Because historically speaking, we're gonna face Montana if they lose in the first round and go to Fargo after we win that game. So what do you foresee going on?
Yeah, I'm not negative or positive, so I'll just say that first of all. I'm just and again, this will be the last time I revert back to talking to Keith, but he actually asked me, he goes, man, if they lose to North Dakota, they're 7-3 and they're 6-4 against Division I teams. Aren't they out? And I'm like, no. Look, I'm like, Keith, you're in the town that has the team that lost to them. You really think a team that beat Colorado State like a drum, like nobody else has done this year, and beat NDSU isn't going to be in the playoffs as an at-large, even if they fall this weekend when they play in the hardest conference with the best strength of schedule collectively, and they're out? And if they win with 1 or 2, they don't need 27 things to happen, but if they win, and let's say Montana loses in the brawl and ETSU maybe doesn't even look that strong against Mercer and still wins by a couple, man, you might even see South Dakota State sneak in there to the number 8, and I wouldn't want to play them. I wouldn't want to play them. So I don't think it's the end of the world at all, considering strength of schedule, which again will come into play in the SRS. And again, I mean, we've seen that year after year that strength of schedule is obviously respected by the committee. It should be respected. I don't want to see, 9-2 teams that don't play anybody getting ahead of 8-3 teams that play a tough schedule. That's not right. So I think they're still doing great. It's just they've had a couple losses that could have gone either way, right? So.
Yeah. So what is your view on SDSU season as a whole this far, in terms of how they've looked and how, I mean, obviously you said you wouldn't want to face them in the playoffs, but
no.
What has been your view of them so far?
Tough out. I mean, first of all, they've lost a couple games, but they've never lost 2 in a row. So they rebound well from a loss, and they're coming off a 3-pointer. On the road to a Hail Mary, which to me is, a tie, a penalty kick shootout in soccer. I mean, a Hail Mary, come on, So I don't think it's the end of the world, and they're so talented. It's a good program, and it's one of the blue bloods. And when we get into the playoffs, the blue bloods tend to rise to the top, and we see a lot of the kind of the sexy, regular season teams kind of fall by the wayside. Every year we see it. And so, guys, I'm not blowing smoke because I'm talking to y'all. I mean, it seriously, it's a great program. It's well coached. And,
well, it'll
see what
certainly
Kurt's saying here.
Yeah, Kurt says.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm detached from being a Gator lately, but yeah. How about that? How about an FCS team hanging 52 on my alma mater in Gainesville? Glad I didn't go to that one. Although I might have had to root for Samford. That's amazing. They scored 42 points in the first half alone. My brother actually sent a message out on Facebook. He's a Gator grad too. He's a season ticket holder. He goes, "Hey, did you guys see the Gator basketball score? Boy, we played well against Samford." And and everybody below who's a fellow Gator grad goes, "Who is Samford and what the heck happened?" And a couple of them know I cover the FCS, and they're like, "What is this team?" And I said, "Well, they love to throw the ball. I'll tell you that much. I think we found that out." So, yeah.
That's a hard way to find out.
What's that?
Yeah. That is a hard way to find out.
Yeah.
But so with this committee, something I'm curious / nervous about. Maybe you have more insight. Maybe you were to talk to some of the committee members or something like that. With them not putting out their rankings like they have done for the last couple of years, it makes me kind of I don't know if it's nervous or just overly curious to the point of anxiety about what they're going to value, if they're going to follow the footsteps of previous committees, if they're going to go off and value their own things differently. How do you think that's going to go? Are we all just sitting in the same boat wondering where the shot's going to land?
And a follow-up question to that is, do you think they're cowards for not putting it out?
Oh, wow.
I don't know, man. I've actually met some of these people, Ben. I don't know that I want to say that. Could I have to answer that? Nah.
They don't want us, I bet.
Was that even a group decision, or did just the president decide that,
Well, I will say this. I think that they've gotten better at this over the years. When they went to the 24 team field, which was in 2013, that was just a couple years before I started at Hero Sports. And boy, those first couple of years that I was covering it and I was learning the way this worked, there were, oh my gosh, every year I had a killer story on Sunday of talking to a coach who was mad. And then and it wasn't just mad because, somebody's going to get left out that wishes they were there. But I'm talking about had a case. In 15 it was UND, 16 it was Albany, 17 it was I can't even remember. I mean, Southern Illinois a couple years ago, and you do wonder kind of what's on the mind. But I think they're getting better at this, but not releasing the seeding situation like they had been doing after you did it 3 weeks early, and then you chipped away at it. And if you remember, guys, the first one was always way off. But, that's right. It's like polls in the September, right? They're always way off with humans because humans are flawed and they vote. And computer polls are flawed in a lot of ways, too. They've got issues. So the early stuff is always a little flawed. But I always felt like by the time they got to the cusp of everything going down, they definitely fine-tuned it. Maybe they listened. Maybe they listened and they got better. Because I remember the biggest questions would always be, okay, who got left out? Who barely got in? And what was the seeding looking like? And, maybe, and then who's the 8 seed who just barely got in and didn't have to play on Turkey Week, And I felt like they got better at that. But I don't know. I wish it was a little more open. I know some of the fans are voting now in the poll, and I sometimes I see their ballots, and they're better than some of the people that get paid to do this,
right?
Because they're doing more you know what? They're doing more national homework. That is see beat writers who cover, and I'm talking about the media poll here, and certainly not Craig, because Craig just counts the votes, or at least Stats Inc. does. They might cover one of these teams and they know their conference, but they're not, even though they vote, they're not paying attention to the rest of the country. And some of the fans are doing a great job. Maybe they should be the committee. So, anyways, I'm meandering, but it just, I wish the SRS did come out before, maybe more than even their guess at the seeds, because I want to know, know where that's going, and because that's going to be a huge determinant, and we don't get that. You're right, we don't get it. So
well, and the thing with that is the SRS. It's not like it's just a computer formula. Why is it some secret? They're not our nation's nuclear missile codes.
I know. I agree. And when you think about it, that it ends up being the ultimate tiebreaker. I mean, it's one thing if you have, a 9-2 CAA team and an 8-3 Southland team, and the strength of schedule is just blaringly obvious, and you can make a human decision without going like 5 steps deep. That's one thing. And if you screw that up, you should be just let out of the equation. But if it gets down to the SRS and so critical, can we just have a clue how it's going? You can kind of say, all right, well, they're playing a really big game this weekend against a good team. So their SRS, which has a strength of schedule component to it, probably will bump up a little bit and this and that. And then you can kind of get a feel for where it might land. But we don't know that stuff. We can only speculate, which speculation's kind of part of our job, but but you also, you have kids playing their senior year, man. Let's get this right. These kids aren't making millions of dollars like certain people that reside in Tuscaloosa and Columbus and stuff, but it's kind of a big deal. Maybe if they've earned that extra game, don't screw it up, please. So. Anyways,
well, those games can make or break programs too. If they make the playoffs, especially in these smaller conferences, that's a huge deal.
It is. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. There's a lot of components to it, but yeah, I guess that would be my take on that. So.
Well, speaking of speculation, what one thing that we're excited about, and we talked about a little bit at the start of this episode, was potentially getting Isaiah Davis back. You saw what he did last year. Obviously, what kind of boost do you think he can give the team as they're hopefully going into the playoffs?
Yeah, that's huge. You want to be a full steam. Definitely don't want to be sitting there limping around when you come to the playoffs, because how many times have we seen a team pretty much earn a chance to go to the playoffs by the end of November, and they lose two key guys. So you want to be at full strength. You don't want, you certainly want a big chunk of your offense to be available. And that's especially if you're going to try to be playing from behind, from the standpoint of, okay, maybe you've got to play Thanksgiving week and you might be on the road a bit. You don't want to be limping around. I think we saw that with Illinois State a couple years ago. They won a couple games against teams they probably should have, but when it all boiled down to it, they were kind of a one-man show. Of course, that one man's turned out to be pretty good in the NFL, James Robinson, but they couldn't do anything in the passing game, and it just changed that whole team when they were pretty well balanced before that happened. And the FCS, you don't have a third team back like Alabama that's as good as the starter at 95% of the other schools. So got to have your main guns there.
So if you were an SDSU fan this weekend, what games outside of our game would you keep the closest eye on? The Brawl of the Wild's a pretty important one, but
yeah, the Brawl's big. Yeah.
What other ones would you say are going to would have the biggest effect on seeding potential and things of that nature?
Yeah, I'll go. Let's set up a top 3 here. The biggest one is you want Montana State to beat Montana and knock them out of the seeding picture. That's the biggest one, and it's realistic. It could happen easily. If it doesn't happen, then the two Montana schools are seeds, and that creates a problem. ETSU, Mercer has shown that they can do some things on certain days. I don't know if they can go to Tennessee and beat ETSU, but it's not as far-fetched as some of these potential upsets that would have to happen in the seeding that are not going to happen, like JMU Towson. That's not going to be an upset. It's not going to happen. Sam Houston's not going to lose at Abilene Christian. But, ETSU and Mercer could be a good game. So SDSU fans, I'd say root for Montana State over Montana. Certainly, if Mercer can knock off ETSU, you're going to knock the Bucks out of nobody's even going to talk about them seed. Kennesaw, I still think SDSU wins. I think they look better than Kennesaw, who is going to have a good record, and that matters. But they've struggled to put away some teams that are like 80th or below in strength of schedule. They're just not that strong, and Kennesaw hasn't always put those teams away, and they have a Division II win. So, but just to be safe, because you never know what the committee's going to do, SDSU fans might want to see a Monmouth team beat Kennesaw, which has happened a lot in recent years. So it's not out of the, and it's happened in Greater Atlanta when they go down from New Jersey down to Greater Atlanta to play at Kennesaw. It could happen. Those would be the three biggest that I think South Dakota State fans, after beating UND, should that happen, and I would think it should happen. Obviously UND is dangerous. They are dangerous, but if that win happens, then pop your popcorn and sit down and watch what happens around the country. And I don't have all the times in front of me, but if they happen before, go check your scoreboard. If you can watch one of them at night, watch one of them at night, because there is a chance SDSU gets into that seeding picture with a win. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna make sure that the team only listens to the part where you say that we can get a seed if we win. I'm gonna make sure they don't listen to the part where you said that we can still get in the playoffs if we lose.
Yes, it's getting edited, all of it.
Yeah, we're just gonna edit that out.
Okay, all right. Well, here we go. You guys have it confirmed? Does the team listen to I'm sure they do, right? Do they listen to this? Are they allowed to listen to this? But then again, how can you keep them from doing it if they want, right, at home?
I mean, yeah, we're on Facebook and YouTube. Anybody can tune in. So they
might be mad at us after the start of this episode. We were a little salty.
Yeah. But well, Brian, we want to be respectful of your time. We do appreciate you coming on and giving your very good insights and giving a perspective kind of for SDSU fans heading into this game.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if you guys want to do it again, let's do it again. I'd love to. So y'all are awesome. You got a great fan base. It's one of the best. You're one of the 4 blue bloods of the entire time I've been working here. And regardless of what people outside the program say, Stig, I love the guy. I think he's great. That's a good man right there. No matter what anybody says about him, he's one of the good guys, in my opinion. And a lot of the guys I've talked to at SDSU over the years just have, a lot of the guys that you talk to in the FCS in general just really impress you. And so thanks for having me, guys. And I'll get a video camera next time so we can compare mugs and make you guys look really good.
Perfect.
I don't know about that.
All right.
I have to grow a beard to hide my face.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could grow a beard. You guys got it sporting, but I have bad genetics for that. So anyway,
we have to up north to protect from the wind. Otherwise,
I've heard that. Sam Herder told me that.
Yep.
Although Sam doesn't exactly have a beard. Maybe he's opted not to, but yeah, a lot of people have said that. So, and it's, by the way, it was 70 degrees down here, so I'll just rub that in.
That sounds terrible.
It was pretty. Can you believe we can actually? Brendan, I was telling you in swapping messages that we play youth soccer in December and January. We don't do it in the summer. It's too damn hot, and then every other one is rained out by tropical stuff, so you can't even train. in the summer. So when do we train? We train in December and in November, and it's gorgeous. So
that's crazy.
Yeah,
that is insane.
Yeah. Dave Law, thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
All right. Well, before you make me feel any worse about where I live, let's get you out of here.
You can always visit.
All right. Yep. Thanks, Brian.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, yeah, fun to have him on. He's a very, very intelligent FCS mind. Go check out his coverage. He does a great job. And like Brendan said, he did a prediction of what the bracket could look like, and his opinion based on if SDSU takes care of business against UND is that we could slide into a 7 or an 8 seed. So more likely an 8 seed, but still,
which would be incredible. I mean, that would be and now that we're moving on, we got kind of the negative stuff out of the way. We talked to Brian, and that's a little more upbeat. If the rest of the season from here on out, this team plays to what it's capable of and gets on a roll, we get Isaiah back. I don't care even if we're on the road. This team is 100% capable of absolutely flushing those memories away, except for the fact that it would be remembered as the most incredible run to a natty possible. Because that's still the goal of the fan base. It's still the goal of the program. Everything is a natty. All those things are fully in their reach. I still don't see a team in the bracket. I don't care if it's JMU. I don't care if it's Sam Houston State, that I go, oh God, I don't want to get sent there. I mean, Montana is, I just, have a little bit of like a tick every time I hear that name, but it's not like you're afraid of these teams. We know this team is more than capable of beating anybody.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you look at like from a betting perspective, we would either be favored or I bet 3 points or less underdogs against any team in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. I mean, that in that sense, if you look at it from that point, like how many teams in the playoffs can say that? Probably the top 4 or 5 seeds, maybe. And right. Maybe not even that. Probably just the top 4 seeds are the only ones that could say that they would either be favored or underdogs by less than a field goal. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, with that in mind, I mean, it's just take care of business on Saturday, get into the playoffs, and then go do what you do. Because, like you said, we can beat anybody in the nation. I'm confident in this team against literally anybody in the nation, and they should be. I mean, they beat an FBS school and they took down NDSU. If you can do that, you can beat anybody in the FCS.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and these are really good teams that we lost to. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would say USD is really good. They are a good team, though. They're not. It's not. We didn't lose to Western Illinois or Youngstown State. These are good teams. Chuck Geiser says I'm a Bison fan on Saturday. I don't know what I am a fan of. I guess I would have to go. Thinking with my head, I would have to say I want them to win. Because if the Yotes happen to win that, then both of our rivals end up with seeds. And I'm not sure I want to live in a timeline where that happens.
Do you think you're saying if USD beats NDSU, USD is getting a seed?
For sure. That's not even a question. Like that is a guarantee, stone cold lead pipe lock that would happen. Because they'll beat us. They'll beat NDSU.
Dilutes our win a little bit over them too. So.
Yeah. So, thinking with my head on that, with my heart, I can never say I'm a fan of that team up there ever, or that I'm cheering for them, period. So, I guess that game's going to be played. That's what I have to say on that one. They're going to blow whistles and throw flags and touchdowns and stuff. Hopefully there's no touchdowns and they end up in an everlasting tie that they have to play until next December. So they're too busy playing the game and none of them can participate in the playoffs.
We do have to go back and address this question.
We don't have to address that at all. Dustin,
I tried.
You watch your mouth. Dustin, the Rev. I'm gonna draw very naughty things on Cardboard Rev's face.
For For anybody that doesn't know, Dustin hosts the Straight Out of Whack podcast where he talks about whack football. He's a Stephen F. Austin fan, and we placed a wager against him at the when SDSU played Stephen F. Austin in basketball. SDSU won, so now he's got to put a logo up where it says SDSU is greater than Stephen F. Austin. So tune in for that tonight. It'll be fun to watch.
Did we read the comment in full?
This one,
the Dustin one. I don't think we did. He was asking if I have bad luck for SDSU since moving to South Dakota. I'll hang up and listen. If we want to talk bad luck, we can talk about every time that Ben decides he needs to make a score prediction instead of just bet on the spread. We lose games in horrific, terrible ways.
I'm pretty sure not every time, but
I'm pretty sure Southern Illinois, you picked the score. And I'm pretty sure this game, I know this game you picked the score. You put it in your spreadsheet. The score you put in, it was in your spreadsheet.
Chad did that.
He did not.
Yes, he did. Anyway.
I did put it in there, but only because you made it.
Anyway, Dustin's other question here was, will Stig out Bubba on Saturday? And if SDSU's 4 losses, do they miss the playoffs? I think they miss the playoffs, but
yeah.
You go ahead.
No, I'm with you. I think we miss the playoffs if we lose. I'm all for that. But Bubba. I think the Jacks come out, and we'll go over that in our predictions. I don't think
speaking of which,
anybody is going to be hopefully an issue.
Speaking of prediction, we need to get going because we are behind schedule. So we're going to roll through quickly the results from last week. And we both went 4-2. This is probably one of our best weeks ever picking, by the way. We both went 4-2 against the spread. That's legit. Eastern Washington took care of business against UC Davis, covered that spread. NDSU covered their spread easily against Youngstown State. Southern Illinois covered their spread easily against Indiana State. Illinois State, we both picked them to cover. They did against UND. UNI did not cover. They lost to Missouri State and are likely out of the playoffs unless some crazy stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge loss for them, and a huge win for Missouri State because they possibly would have been on the bubble if they lost. So huge playoff implications in that one. And then lastly, obviously, we did not cover our 10-point spread against USD. Let's quickly run over the top 25. We've got NDSU sitting at number 4, Missouri State sitting at 8, SDSU sitting at 11, USD sitting right behind at 12, Southern Illinois sitting at 16. And Chad's got it up on the screen there. That's the Any Given Saturday poll. So it's interesting, you look at potential seed possibilities and what would need to happen. We mentioned Montana State play each other. If Montana loses, obviously they're out of the seed conversation. Missouri State sitting there at number 8 in the poll. I just don't see, if you compare our resumes, assuming we beat UND on Saturday, I don't think that Missouri State has a chance at a seed over us. They don't have the wins, in my opinion. You're muted, Brendan.
Told me it popped up. Hey,
there you go.
If it at Missouri State, are you saying if they lose or if they win this weekend
if they win this weekend? If Missouri State and SDSU both win this weekend, does Missouri State have a case for being seeded over us?
They might. I think they have less losses than we do overall, and we play in the same conference. Outside of the fact, you can obviously argue, that we didn't play each other, things like that. But they will have a win over Southern Illinois and Northern Iowa, both teams that beat us. We will have obviously the win over NDSU, but we played NDSU at home. They played them on the road, really had them on the ropes. So if you line them up, the thing that would pull it out for us would have to be the the FBS win, and that's going to come down to the committee. I mean, there's a real possibility that Missouri State would be seated above us, and if we're both not seated, which is possible, if we're both not seated, there's a possibility we both get paired up in the first round because we didn't play in conference play, and that is not a fun first round game at all.
Certainly not. I don't think there's a possibility. They would also have 3 losses. One of them's an FBS loss. They wouldn't have 3. They'd only have 2 FCS losses. But one of those being to Youngstown State, that doesn't look good for them. And then as far as wins over playoff teams, they would have 2 probably, Southern Illinois and USD. And I guess we would only have 1 against an FCS, but we got the FBS win in our pocket. In my opinion, if you compare those, I think SDSU has the seed over them. But let's take a peek at. Do you have Missouri Valley standings up, Chad, by chance?
I just want to take this moment to apologize for everyone who hears the squalling dog. No, I'm not murdering dogs. I do have a puppy who we're starting to realize is deaf. So if you look up anything about deaf dogs, they make a racket. So especially when for some reason she realizes I'm home, probably due to how the other dogs are acting around her kennel. So I apologize for that. Can't help that one without running away. I did my best to avoid it. I was in another room, but then somebody complained about not having proper internet in that room. So we have what we have, folks.
Yeah. So Chad's got the Missouri Valley standings up here. If NDSU wins this weekend, obviously they're running with the conference championship. And it sounds like with tiebreakers, but I mean, they would if they lose to USD, there'd be a 4-way share, possibly for the conference title. But it sounds like NDSU would win the auto bid, which isn't a huge deal. I mean, they're going to make the playoffs anyway. But that's I guess for those that aren't watching, NDSU's at the top, and then Missouri State, USD, Southern Illinois are all tied for second. And then SDSU's sitting in 5th there. So Jim Poppin asks, if we have to play on Thanksgiving weekend, we'll be at home. Isn't home field done on a bid process? Yes, it is done a bid process. It would depend on who we get matched up against. If it is Montana, like Brendan mentioned, it's going to be tough to outbid them.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jim, because I think a lot of times, we see people misunderstanding maybe how that works, new people to FCS, things like that. It is all done on a bid process for your opening round games. In fact, if you're a seed, you still have to put in a minimum bid amount to host a playoff game. So in theory, if a team did not put in a seed in a bid and they got a seed and the other team bid, they would have to travel to that team. Interestingly enough, hopefully that shouldn't happen. The other interesting thing is I'm pretty sure they don't put the bids in like this week. Like those were put in like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And part of that has there's a lot of things that go into it. Your attendance, they got to figure that. How bad do you want a home game? If you're USD, do you have some corporate sponsor who's going to pay your bid because you're not going to have the attendance? Things like that. That all are really important factors to that. And other things that can happen is like for us SDSU, we looked like a team that was going to have a seed all year. So that's tough when you're Justin Self. Did he put a bid in for the first round at all? Or did he put in a really competitive bid? Because you probably don't. I mean, I don't think any of us expected us to not get a seed as of 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. So did we put in a very competitive bid? We could end up it's a possibility we end up on the road at some team we probably shouldn't have due to not expecting to play in the first round in the bidding process.
Depends when he put the bid in, because if it was after Hobo Day and our loss to UNI, there was a problem. I mean, considering NDSU is still on the schedule, there's a decent chance we don't get a seed. I mean, you can't assume we're going to beat NDSU.
I do every year.
Well, I personally do too. But if you're making business decisions, it probably wouldn't be a good idea.
I make a business decision about it every year. We come on here and we tell everybody our business decision. It exists on the internet forever.
That's true. But yeah, so back to the question. Yes, it is a bid process. We could, if we don't get a seed, we could host a game Thanksgiving weekend. We will see. So with that, let's get into the games that we're looking at next week. And unfortunately, since we're recording on Tuesday, we don't have spreads.
Yes.
So I think in the interest of time, we're just going to pick them straight up. Once the spreads come out tomorrow, Brandon and I will. I mean, you can make score predictions if you want.
Coward. You coward. Fine,
yeah.
we'll do them on Twitter. Whatever. Follow us on Twitter.
How about we not do score predictions on our game?
Fine. We won't.
Well, I never put I'm not going to put like a real score. I was going to do so and so wins by 5, but apparently that is too difficult and drawn out. So I made sure. And what are you complaining about time for? We record until 10 every night, or 9 or 10. And it's only 6:30. We have so much time right now.
Yeah, you guys are in for a long one.
Buckle up.
Yeah, FCS Fans Nation guys thinks they're doing big things with 2 hours. Just wait till we go for 4.
The 4-hour post Yote game rage pod.
Yeah. At some point,
the
we're
last
just gonna
hours, Brendan breaking valuable things in his home.
At some point, we're just gonna be playing like "Hello, Darkness, my old friend."
So, at what point are we making
we all
the
just sit and stare off?
No, we're gonna put that
eventually.
Off
we've got until we've established we have till 9:30.
Yeah, we're good. We got time. No, let's go ahead and just make these picks. So, the 3 games that you mentioned that we should pay attention to, I think 2 for sure. The first one is a huge one: Montana State at Montana. The cowards at ESPN did not take game day there. Unfortunately, that would have been really cool. They're going to a stupid Ohio State game instead. But it's still a huge game. Number 2, Montana State going to number 9, Montana. Montana State is essentially playing for a 2 seed. They should be anyway. If the playoff committee does it right, it should be Sam Houston 1. And if Montana State wins this game, they'll be a 2 seed. And that's huge. I mean, you can get home field until you're in Frisco, and they obviously want that. I mean, they've got a pretty good home field advantage in Bozeman, so it's a huge game for them.
Yeah, Montana State has, when you look at that rivalry, it's the second biggest rivalry in FCS. The game and atmosphere, due to location, might be a little better, but it never quite has the national significance of the marker game. Montana State is the one I see as SDSU in that rivalry, and Montana was NDSU for the longest time, and Montana State is now taken for the last 4. I'm going to take the Bobcats. They've proved everyone wrong over and over and over and over and over again. So I'm going to go ahead and take Montana State in that game.
Yeah. I'll take Montana State as well. And you know what? The 2 things they have is a really good defense and a good running game. If you got that, you can win championships. And so, while I wouldn't necessarily be scared of going to play Montana State, it would be a very big challenge. I mean, they've got a very, very good team this year, and they've done what they need to do to be in position to win a 2 seed. So, yeah. Like we said, I think Montana State takes that one. And then we've got number 20, Mercer, playing at number 7, East Tennessee. This is an interesting one because East Tennessee is probably playing for a seed. If they win, they should get a seed. If they lose, they don't get a seed. And Mercer, on the other hand, is probably playing for their playoff lives. If they lose, they're definitely on the bubble and probably on the outside looking in.
Yeah, just because of the fact it's at East Tennessee, ETSU has an SEC win. They won at Vanderbilt. I'm going to take the Buccaneers.
Yeah, it's hard not to take them, especially with the run game they have, which is the second best backfield in the FCS. Jamie Williams. There's you cannot tell me that backfield is better than Pierre Strong and Isaiah Davis. Like that's recency bias. He forgets how good those two are. But anyway, I digress.
It's location bias. He's from Virginia, and
also
he
location.
needs to prop up the South to feel good about it. The SoCon is a mediocre conference that he has to become a fan of because of James Madison running away.
Yeah. Is that what he's doing?
Python.
He's just going blazing guns on the way out, pissing everybody out.
He's jumping to a SoCon team, if I remember right. He said, "I'm gonna have an FCS team. He's gonna stay on the FCS Fans Nation pod, and he's gonna cheer for some SoCon team. I don't know."
Well,
I would have cared more if he didn't say silly things like that ETSU has the best running backs in the country.
That's right. All right. So then we've got a true hack of the week. Thank you.
Hack of the week, Jamie.
We've got number 13 Sacramento State going to number 10 UC Davis. This is another game that could potentially be for a seed. I think the winner of this game is going to have a very, very strong case for a seed, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's true. I'm going to just kind of follow what I have done all year and all with the last one, and I'm going to go ahead and take the home team. I mean, that's what I'm, home field advantage does matter a lot in college sports.
It does. I'll take Sacramento State. I think they've got the more dynamic offense, which, speaking of home team, the interesting thing that the FCS Fans Nation pod did when they were picking games for playoffs, they picked all away teams except for like one. So
it's unique.
They're just asking for trouble doing that because, like you said, that home field advantage is a huge thing in college football. So we went opposite on that one at least, and then we get into Valley games. The weird thing is Missouri State's got a non-conference game for their last game of the year. It's against a former foe, Dixie State. Pick them or straight up, you got to take Missouri State in this one. I don't think it's even a choice, but it's just kind of weird not having a Valley game.
Don't tell me what to do, Ben. I'll do what I want. I don't have to take Dixie State. I don't have to take Missouri State at all. I'm going to take Dixie State and the points with whatever the points are because all right, I'll take Missouri State. In protest,
I guess, yeah. These
not because you want me to.
These picks don't matter toward our record because we'll make our record.
Oh well, in that case, I'm taking Dixie State in this game because it doesn't matter towards my record. I'm taking Dixie State. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Perfect.
Thank you for making that easier. See, I didn't have to pick Missouri State at all.
See, this is why. Never mind. Indiana State. Indiana State goes to Illinois State. In a game that matters to no one except these two teams. I will take Illinois State.
Yeah, they're trending in different directions, and Illinois State's actually played halfway decent at the end of the year. I'll take the Deadbirds.
Yep. And then we've got Western Illinois against Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa, I think, screwed up their playoff chances last week, but at the same time, I think they'll try to finish on a good note because they do have a good team. And it's kind of crazy to see a team like Northern Iowa not make the playoffs because they would make some noise in the playoffs. I'll guarantee you that.
I agree they will, but you know what?
They would. They
would.
They make it.
But I'm going to take Western. Yeah, it just feels like that's the way UNI's season's going to go. I have a good friend of mine who's a UNI fan, and I just always get the text. He has to become a Jackrabbit fan this week. He was so mad. So
even after we lost to USD,
even after that loss, he was like, "Can I just be a Jackrabbit fan? You're coaching so much better. Your players. Can I just be a Jackrabbit fan?" And I told him, of course, he's welcome. But
But the bad thing is,
I just feel like this is the way their season's gone. They're losing to UNI's losing to teams they really shouldn't have no business losing to. So I'm gonna take Western because it doesn't make sense.
The problem is then he would have to come to Hobo Day every year and watch his former favorite team beat his new favorite team on Hobo Day. His new favorite team on Hobo Day every year. So that's just stay a UNI fan.
Maybe no, it'd be better that way. At least I wouldn't have to be seeing him quietly because he's like very quiet about it. He does like rub it in your faces, but he's just like quietly happy over there, which is like the nicest way he could be, but it still is like, man.
Yeah. All right. So I took UNI, you took West Illinois. And then you've got Youngstown State going to number 16, Southern Illinois. I think Southern Illinois, kind of a tune-up game for them going into the playoffs. Youngstown State's been playing better, but I think Southern Illinois wins this one and kind of secures their spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean that about sums it up.
Perfect. And then we've got a big game, number 12 USD going to number 4 NDSU. Like you said, USD could potentially get a seed if they win this game. NDSU is probably playing for, if they win, they're looking at a 3 or 4 seed at worst. And they could even get up to number 2 if Montana State loses. So a lot at stake for them. I don't see USD going in after the game against us and beating NDSU. I think it probably took a lot out of them. I mean, it can be a springboard for them, being with the emotional victory they got, but I think NDSU wins this one.
Yeah, I got to go with NDSU. If you look at USD's 2 major wins, they were UNI and SDSU are kind of their biggest wins of the conference season. And both of those teams coincidentally played NDSU the week before. It came out flat the next week. So I'm going to go ahead and take NDSU because NDSU just got done playing Youngstown State. If they'd have been playing NDSU after the marker, then maybe I would be more inclined to take USD. I don't think USD travels well. So I'm going to go ahead and take NDSU where they'll be distorting their speaker volume instead of having it in their favor. Jim, you're a silly man.
Jim says USD is going to win this week. And if you look at those big wins you talked about that USD had against UNI and SDSU, they were both in games where the other team turned the ball over a bunch. UNI turned the ball over a bunch and USD took advantage of it. SDSU had 2 interceptions and still should have won, and they got lucky at the end. So, it's kind of crazy. We're 2 plays away from being 9-1. They're a couple plays away from being, I don't know, 2. What would they be? 5-5.
Their fans would argue. Their fans would argue they're a couple plays away from being undefeated too, but I don't listen to such silliness.
But it is kind of crazy how college football is like that. Lastly, we get to finally our game against UND. UND at number 11 SDSU. Obviously, I'm going to take SDSU in this one. I think we see a very angry SDSU team that I would hope uses this. I think you mentioned springboard earlier. Uses it that way in terms of, making a positive out of it and saying, okay, we need to refocus and we need to bring the intensity every game. So yeah, I'm expecting a very angry team that comes out and punches UND in the mouth. And then UND's doesn't really have much to play for. Even if they win, they're not making the playoffs. So I think we take away their will early in the game and win by. I'm not going to make a score prediction. I'll say
stop it.
I'll say we'll win.
Stop it.
We're
Stop.
Win
We're doing no. Stop it.
3 scores. They could be 3 field goals. Who knows?
Y'all heard this here. Every one of you. All right. He tailgates over by me. I will show you where his truck is.
Throw things at me.
And you can take the valve stems out of his tires.
The valve cores.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Hey, does it count if he doesn't give an exact score?
Chuck has
now at this point.
Chuck's got what I was going to predict anyway. So
shush, God,
thanks, Chuck.
why?
That's
the same.
That almost counts.
That's the same. That's the same thing.
Come on, man. That's some bad juju. Different. Why you got to wish this bad juju on
Why?
This?
Yeah, why would you risk that? This is a must-win game. Why?
Yeah,
why?
It's must-win. That's why we're going to go win it at home. What you need to do,
despite all of your evil juju.
Hey, listen. I think that the majority of people that listen or that are on watching right now probably and listen to this are season ticket holders. And there's a deal where you can get 4 tickets and you can give them to friends. So go do that. Get as many people you can to this game. Let's fill the Dana. Let's support our team. Let's make sure we help them get into the playoffs.
Yeah, bring friends. I mean, it's like Tanner was saying, it's the last shot possibly to see one of the all-time greats for SDSU who will be playing on Sundays, and you're going to be able to say to your kids, hey, you remember watching him? Or say to your buddies, yeah, I remember watching him at state, all that stuff. It's really cool. It is cool when you're watching those games. You can do that. So get your friends there. It should be really nice weather for the time of year, as far as I've seen, like stupidly nice. So get down there. But as far as the game goes, in my prediction, I'm going to go ahead and take SDSU in this one. If there's one thing that during the last 9 games or 9 years of making the playoffs, SDSU has been really good at, even before 2009. These SDSU teams, when they get down into a spot with their back at the wall, we talk about you and I doing that all the time and being really dangerous. SDSU is super dangerous when their backs are against the wall. We just don't lose. We don't lose, like Brian BMAC told us. We don't lose 2 games in a row. We recover, we come back, we win these games in a big way. So I really like us to come out. I like the Hogs to take control of the line of scrimmage. I'd love to see Isaiah Davis get back, pound the rock, maybe get 2 games to fall our way and get that much needed bye week. Otherwise, we're playing on Thanksgiving, see where the matchup is. But Jacks fans, keep your ears out. This is playoff football. It's been 9 years in a row. We should know by now to be ready to attend these games. So be ready. Have your warm gear, bring your friends. I don't care if you got time up and throwing in the trunk of your car, but let's get to these games. Let's support the team. Let's make a difference. We've made a difference in the Dome. We've made the difference here. We've made a difference in the NDSU game. I mean, they had 2 false starts in one drive. I mean, tell me that doesn't make a huge difference. So get down there. Like my wife Ariel says, we will be bringing friends. I think we've got 3 extra people lined up right now. So go ahead and fill them tickets up, guys.
Yeah, and Chad's showing there.
We got $9 tickets too, or well, $10 tickets.
Yeah, so all season ticket holders got, I think it's 4 free to give out to friends, and then they can get, in addition to that, $10 tickets. So, let's fill this thing. And like Brendan said, it's gonna be nice weather. So, with that, anything else we got before we pass the hour 20 mark here?
I thought we were going till 10. What are we even doing? What, you guys trying to tell me you have plans?
I mean, some of us might want to eat tonight, but
we can eat.
That's not me, thankfully.
Hello and welcome to Dining with Chadwick.
No, I'm not eating today. It's all right,
It's a fast day. So what are you saying, some of us?
Yeah, it's a fast day.
Yes, how about some wine tasting with Chadwick and friends? I'm going to call you Chadwick.
I'm more of a beer guy and mixed drinks, but, wine's good. Right. It's just not what I choose.
That's true. I'm with you.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks to Brian for coming on. Go check out the A-Team. Tanner from Kelland's on there. He's really good. Go check out the FCS Nations podcast where they talk about playoff predictions. Chad has something he needs to say.
Shout out for the BMAC and Notch podcast too. That's available. He has a good podcast. So
also shout out to Shenanigans for sponsoring the pick segment. Do not go there this weekend. Go to Brookings instead. Go there for the away games that we will inevitably have in the playoffs because we did not take care of business and we'll be heading on the road at some point. So when we do, we can go to Shenanigans then because it is the home of Jackrabbit, the home of Jackrabbit Sports in Sioux Falls. So thank you to them. All right. Now that we've gone over an hour 20, I think we can officially say go big, go blue, go Jack.